Hey guys, how's it going? I wanted to stop in here and do a video on industry, show you guys the ticket and how to make money. So there's going to be a few things come into play here, where you're manufacturing and the tools that you're using. Now these tools are optional, but I highly recommend them. But we'll get into that here in a second. First off is where you're manufacturing. Where you manufacture. If we go over here to facilities, and do I have a blueprint I can load up real quick? Here, we'll do this. Go down to subcap BPCs, and I don't know, let's look at a caracal. So we've got our caracal loaded in now. And if we look, this system has a pretty high cost index, and that's because it's used a lot. We can see here if we manufacture here, it's going to cost us $968,000 to manufacture one caracal. Now, if we go to another manufacturing facility with less of an index, less people use it, you can see that price has decreased significantly. So that's your first step. You want to find a place that has good rigs for material efficiency and time efficiency, and a place that doesn't have a whole lot of people using it. That way that cost index is lower and you can get your total job cost down. Now that's part of it. Now the question is how to see what is profitable and how to make the most money off of that item. I purposefully didn't plan ahead for this, just so we could kind of do a play-by-play. Let's look, I don't know, let's go, I think doing a capital ship here might be a better example. So let's find us a capital to build. Oh, I don't know. Let's look at a Providence. That might be a good example. So we take a look at this Providence here. We can see what all it takes to make it. But if we just bought these components here, it would be very expensive to make this Providence, and Providences right now are going for about $3 bill. So that's where our tools come into play, and this here might possibly be the most handy tool. It's eveindustryplanner.com, and on here you've got a job planner. Now what we're going to do in the search bar is we're going to type in Providence, and it's going to pull our Providence up, and we're going to try to manufacture this thing as cheap as possible. Now, when you're doing T2 and T3 stuff, typically if you start at the base level, ground zero, you're going to be making the most money. Really, the money in industry is coming from those first few steps. You're not going to be making a whole lot of money if you just bought these items, but the ticket here is starting at ground zero. So what we want to do is we want to go to add ingredient jobs, and from here, if we click select all and go to our shopping list, it's going to tell us what we need to build all these items. So right now the cost for the Providence is, after all our job fees, let's just take a quick look at this, 48 mil. We'll say it's 2.45 bill or even 2.5 bill after job costs. That's a little high, but this is just an example here. That's 500 mil profit. That is pretty daggone good for a 2.5 bill investment. But we can make this even cheaper. Right now it's 2.35 billion-isk. We're going to go up here and we're going to press add ingredient jobs again. And what it's going to do is it's going to break this stuff down. So instead of just producing these items you see here, now we're going to be producing these items. And that's going to net us even more of a profit. It's going to take more time. It's going to be more of a headache. You can see, what was it, 2.35 I think, and now it's down to 2.27. So we've gotten ourselves even more profit by breaking it down, and that's what you want to do. You just want to keep breaking it down and start at what I call the ground level. Now, if you're not worried about that 100 mil and you're okay with a 500 mil profit, and you don't necessarily care about the extra 100 mil, then don't do it, because it is a pretty significant headache. You may be into that. You may want to make a little extra ISK. We just broke it down again and saved ourselves like 20 mil at this point. I don't think it's worth it. I think it was 2.27. Now it's 2.2 almost. So I wouldn't say it would be worth it to go this low. So I go the next step up and build from there. But that's generally where your profit lies. That's the big thing in this video. Break it all the way down, get down to base level, and then figure out the difference between each level and where you want to sit in there and how much profit you want to make. That's the big tidbit. Now, how to find things that are profitable, we're going to be using EV/ISK per hour. Now, you guys have probably heard of this, but the general setup for this is you want to head over to update prices, and then you want to go to download prices. Now, before you do that, actually, make sure you're on the Forge for region and JITA for the system. That way you're going to get JITA prices. A lot of industry guys import because it's cheaper than buying local. That's not always the case, but sometimes it is. So make sure to double check prices, local versus importing from JITA. And then, of course, you have to factor in your shipping costs. But generally, it's cheaper to import, I find. But after that, you want to go over to manufacturing list. And here we've got a fair bit of setup. You want to include in here some info about the manufacturing facility you're using. This is the facility I use, so I've got it put in there. That way it can calculate job cost. Now over here, EV/ISK per hour, as of now, I don't think compensates for blueprint costs. So if you leave these things through here checked, you know, you have to buy the Navy and the Pirate blueprints, and same thing with the storyline. That isn't factored in. I don't like to use these. I'll uncheck that. Now over here, you can pick what you want to make. Rigs is always a great starting point, in my opinion. I'd start out doing rigs, and then from there I get into T2 rigs. Typically, something like ships is always super cool to make, but in most situations, because they're cool to make, a lot of people make them and drive the margins down. So you might stay away from something like ships. And typically T2 stuff will make you a decent bit of change. T1 stuff typically isn't all too profitable, but it's okay to start out and get a feel for industry doing T1 stuff. Now come down here and uncheck include items without SVR. So the higher the SVR, it's pretty much how much of that item is traded per day. So you want items with high SVR. That means you'll be able to move them quickly. Now for this example, I'm just going to uncheck all this just so this calculates a little bit faster, and we'll only do rigs. So once you have all that set up, you can even go in here and do an ISK per hour threshold. So if you only want to display jobs that would net you above 1 million ISK per hour or whatever, you can input that here. Same thing with volume and profit. And profit's just obviously your profit. It doesn't factor in ISK per hour. So from there, you're just going to press calculate, and it's going to figure out what is good to build. All right. So from here, you can either, I usually filter by one of these three. I guess that's really the only three you'd filter by, but SVR is nice if you just want to make a lot of something and you don't care so much about profit and ISK per hour. This is a good place to start because you'll know you're able to move it fairly quick. And right here, right off the bat, we can see that the small hyperspatial velocity optimizer can net us a decent amount of ISK, 65,000 ISK per hour per job slot. And if we hop over here, small velocity optimizer, if we hop over here on my JITA tune, and it's also important, I'd say have a JITA tune. It's super, super nice, but we can see that I like to go for the lowest amount traded, but here we can see that this is kind of an anomaly. So I don't know, this seems to be about the average. 850 or let's call it 850. 850 are traded every day. So then I would pop open my calculator, 850 times, I don't know, I think 20% is usually a good one to go off of. So 20% of the total volume per day is 170. So personally, I would build like 150 of these hyperspatial velocity optimizers per day. That way it ensures you can probably move them every day. And then if we look at that too, 170. Let's look. Our profit for each one is, let's call it 500,000, because you're going to have to include blueprint fees. I don't know what those would be off the top of my head, but let's just say 500,000 profit. So just off of this one item, you're looking at making 85 million, give or take. You got to factor in your broker fees. You got to factor in trying to get the blueprint. If you don't have access to blueprint copies. So after it's all said and done, I always like to lowball all my industry stuff. That way it gives me a bare minimum number. So here I would plan on making, I don't know, 70 mil a day off of this one item. And then you can go down through here and pick different items if you've got more job slots open. But you can see a lot of these are T2. That's mostly where the profit's at. Let's see. Let's do profit, and then we'll look at T1 stuff. So here we go. That's T1. That's making you a pretty good chunk of profit. And on the T1 rigs, you don't have to invent them, so you're good to go. It is a little more of a total cost. It's going to cost you more to make it. So depending on how much liquid you've got ready to go, that might be an issue, but it's just something to think about. I will say I've been heavily doing industry for like 2 months. So I'm a pretty big noob in industry, but this is just what I figured out so far. Hopefully it can help somebody out there. But I appreciate you guys stopping in. If you have any tips, help me out, help the people out watching, drop them in the comment section. I'd like to hear them. But thank you guys so much for watching. I'll catch you next time. You thought the video was over, but it's not quite over yet. It's time for a shameless plug for my corporation Cruisers Crew. I bounced around in EVE. I've been with pretty much everybody. I've tried all kinds of different paths, from low sec to null sec to wormholes, and I'll tell you, I think I have truly found a home here in Cruisers Crew. You've got amazing leadership. There's quite a few active people, and we do a wide range of stuff. In terms of PvP, we do null sec roams, a lot of low sec roams, and then on occasion we'll blops. And on the industry side of things, we have quite a few industry gurus here in Cruisers Crew. So we can help you get set up there. We even have our own industry structures with a low job cost. So that's a big benefit. Now, as far as Cruisers Crew, we are in the initiative, which again, I've been all over the place, and the initiative is hands down my favorite null block there is. These guys are fantastic. You're going to have a really fun time out here. So if you're looking for a corp, please check out Cruisers Crew. You can find me through the in-game channel, TheSingularityYT, and I'll help get you hooked up and into the corp.